Hello and welcome. Have you ever found yourself in that situation where you mention something about your child's abilities and you suddenly feel, well, misunderstood, maybe even a little judged? If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. This explainer is for you, and it comes from us at Gifted Children South Africa.
Today, we're diving into something that can be really tricky. Why sharing what your gifted child can do often gets mistaken for bragging, when in reality, it's something else entirely. It's advocacy. So let's get right into the heart of it.
Does this hit home for you? You state a simple fact about your child, and you can just feel the air in the room change. This quote really captures that isolating feeling perfectly. You're not trying to show off, you're just describing your reality.
So here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll talk about this whole bragging parent problem. Then, we'll unpack the reaction, why it happens. We'll look at it through a uniquely South African lens, and then, this is the best part, we'll pivot from just talking about the problem to giving you some really powerful, practical tools for change. All right, let's start with that moment. You know the one, that familiar, awkward moment. You're just sharing a part of your day, a part of your child's life, and you're met with this vibe. Maybe it's an eye roll or a quick change of subject. It feels really personal, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's actually a pretty common social phenomenon? Yeah, this reaction, this discomfort, it's not just people being randomly rude. There are some very predictable psychological forces at work here that cause people to get defensive when they hear about a child's advanced abilities. So the big question is, why? Why does this happen? Because once you understand the why behind the reaction, you gain the power to change the whole dynamic. So let's peel back the layers and see what's actually going on in the other person's head. Okay, so at the very core of all of this is something called social comparison theory. It basically says that we are all, as humans, hardwired to measure ourselves against others. It's how we figure out where we stand. And let's be honest, when it comes to things like parenting and intelligence, the stakes for that comparison can feel incredibly high.
And that comparison, it can spark envy. But not all envy is created equal. There's benign envy, which might make someone think, wow, I wish my child could do that, and maybe feel a little motivated. But then there's malicious envy, and that's the one that causes the problem. It makes people want to tear down the other person's success to feel better about their own situation. So their brain doesn't think, that's incredible. It jumps to a defense mechanism like, oh, they must be a pushy parent.
This leads us right into this idea of the tall poppy syndrome. You've probably heard of it. It's this cultural tendency to look at anyone who stands out, the tall poppy, and feel an urge to cut them down to size. And when it comes to giftedness, which can sometimes look like an unfair advantage from the outside, this reaction can be especially sharp. Now, these are pretty universal human things, right? But here in South Africa, it can feel, well, dialed up to 11. There are some really specific historical and cultural reasons why that tall poppy syndrome can hit particularly hard right here at home. Just take a quick look at this timeline of our education system. After 1994, there was a huge and very necessary push for equity. But one of the side effects was that a lot of the specialized programs for gifted kids were dismantled. The goal was inclusion for all, but for these kids, it often led to what we call covert exclusion, where their very real needs just get lost in a system that's trying to be one size fits all. And then you've got this beautiful, vital cultural layer of ubuntu, the idea that I am because we are. It's all about community and harmony. But an unintended consequence of this can be that when someone highlights exceptional individual achievement, it can accidentally be seen as trying to stand apart from the group rather than just being a celebrated part of it.
Okay, so we've looked at the problem, we've looked at why it happens. Now for the really good stuff, the solution. It all starts with a huge shift in how we think about this and how we talk about it. This is where you really get to take your power back.
Here it is. This is the absolute key. We have to stop framing giftedness as being better and start seeing it for what it is, a form of neurodiversity. It's just a different kind of brain wiring, and that wiring comes with its own unique set of needs and challenges. This isn't a conversation about a ladder of superiority. It's a conversation about a wide spectrum of human difference.
So what does that actually look like? Well, let's look at the language we use. On one side, you've got achievement speak. My fourth grader is doing grade 11 maths. It's a fact, sure, but it immediately triggers that comparison we talked about. Now, look at the other side. Needs speak. My child needs more challenge to stay engaged and avoid frustration. See the difference? It's the same situation, but it's framed around the child's internal experience, their need.
And the result of that tiny shift in language?
It's huge. Achievement speak almost guarantees you'll get that defensive wall of envy or judgment, but need speak, it's an invitation. It invites understanding, empathy, and maybe even support. It completely changes the conversation from a competition to a collaboration. It's a total game changer.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks. How do you actually do this in your real life? You know, at the school gate, with your in-laws, in that parent-teacher meeting. Here are some real, concrete tools you can put in your advocacy toolkit right now. Here are 4 things you can literally start doing today. 1. We've just talked about this, but shift from achievement to need. 2. Balance the story. Share the struggles, the quirks, the challenges that come along with the gifts. It makes the picture whole and much more relatable. 3. Describe behaviors, not labels. Instead of saying, he's a genius, try, he has this intense curiosity and gets really frustrated when he's bored. And 4. Be smart. Choose your audience and your timing. Not everyone needs to hear the full story.
You know, sometimes a good analogy is worth 1,000 words. Here are a few to keep in your back pocket. The sports parallel. Nobody bats an eye when a talented athlete gets extra coaching. The vision analogy. We don't call glasses elitist for a child who can't see the board. We call it a necessary accommodation. These analogies are so powerful because they reframe academic needs as a matter of basic fairness, not special privilege.
And let's be really clear about this. The goal here is not to silence you. It's not to make you hide your child's reality. Not at all. The goal is to give you the tools to share that reality in a way that builds bridges, that creates understanding, and that ultimately advocates for your child's fundamental right to an education that actually fits them.
And please remember, you are absolutely not alone in this. For practical toolkits, a ton of resources you can download, and to connect with a community of parents and educators who just get it, please visit our website at giftedchildrensouthafrica.org.
And if you want to dive even deeper, you can find our full podcast series on Spotify, and you can connect with us on our social media channels. You'll find all the links you need right there on our website. So we'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. In our families, in our schools, and in our country as a whole, what incredible untapped potential could we possibly unlock if we all made the choice to meet difference with understanding instead with judgment? Thanks so much for joining us.
Like, comment, and subscribe.